my next guest, who's a graduate of University College Dublin, where he studied history and philosophy. He also has a master's degree in library and information studies. He has a diagnosis of spastic diplegia cerebral palsy and is a disability rights advocate. He wrote to the Oireachtas Committee on Justice expressing concern about the Dying with Dignity bill, and he's with me now. Conor Lynott, thanks for joining us. Hiya, Conor.
Thank you very much for having me, Steve.
So first of all, Conor, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, so my name is Conor Lynott. I am 24 and I live in Wexford Town. I have just finished a master's degree in library and information science in UCD, and before that I completed a degree in history and philosophy there. During secondary school at Wexford CBS, I was the equality officer for the Irish second level students union, and in that capacity I worked with the Irish Human Rights Commission, as it was then called. I also have a disability. I was born with cerebral palsy.
Okay, and so, but that hasn't stopped you going to college, getting a degree, doing a master's. So you've been very active.
Yes, I've been very active, and I'm passionate about this subject because it's a big topic of philosophy. So I've always been kind of interested in this topic.
So you made a submission to the Justice Committee about the Dying with Dignity bill. Why did you decide to go to the trouble of doing that?
Okay, so I made this submission because I was concerned about the consequences of the bill for people with disabilities, and I was interested in this debate. I also felt I was in a position to comment on euthanasia because of my background in history and philosophy, and it's also worth noting that I was interested in the arguments against euthanasia, particularly the slippery slope arguments that would have been common in philosophy cycles. So I would have studied them, and when I saw this bill, I saw the submission as a platform to make my voice heard about my concerns about the euthanasia bill.
Now, first of all, you took issue, I suppose, in your submission with the title of the bill. Can you tell us why you particularly pointed out that?
Okay, so my concerns about the title of the bill are primarily the language around the dignity in the bill. Firstly, the bill doesn't define what dignity is, and secondly, there are unjustified and unsubstantiated assumptions, in my view, about the nature of the dying process in the bill. Looking at the title, Dying with Dignity, it assumes that the dying process is divided into dignified and undignified. The biggest problem with this is that if the bill is passed, it would mean that a national government is taking a position on what they regard as a dignified way to die. In my opinion, I think that this is highly manipulative and potentially unconstitutional, as it violates Irish citizens' rights to freely express their opinions and convictions as set out in Article 40 of the Irish Constitution. This is because the Irish government would be wrongfully using the influence of legislation to sway the public towards a certain opinion about the dying process, a matter that is deeply personal to a patient. For these reasons, I think the bill should be shelved.
Okay. You also talked about the term used in the bill, terminal illness. Why is that?
It's because I'm concerned about the social implications of the definition of terminal illness in the bill for people with disabilities. Firstly, the bill defines terminal illness as and I quote, incurable and progressive illness, which is likely to cause death. But this leaves several important questions unanswered. They are, at what point must illness be deemed incurable to qualify as a euthanasia case? This isn't answered in the bill. I mean, for example, does this mean incurable now, incurable at the time of illness, or incurable at any point in time? Also, at what speed must a condition be deteriorating before it qualifies as a euthanasia case? None of these questions are answered in the bill. Second, as part of the definition as terminal illness, there is no legally binding process outlined in Section 14 of the bill, which obliges medical staff responsible for carrying out a euthanasia procedure to be transparent about the decision-making process and the medical research involved in deeming a patient eligible for the procedure. The lack of a safeguard means that an important safeguard against medical negligence is missing in the bill. So to sum up, there is a vagueness and ambiguity in the bill terminology that could have negative implications for people with disabilities.
So, like, if this bill was to pass, Conor, how do you think it would affect disability rights?
I think there are certain implications for people with disabilities and the rights of if the bill's definition of terminal illness, due to its vagueness and lack of detail that I talked earlier, is enacted into law, which I also talk about in my original submission. In my view, it could lead to implications such as prioritization of some medical conditions over others because of the lack of clarity over which types of progressive illnesses qualify and which don't. I think it may also lead to ill-informed decisions. For example, patients volunteering for the procedure based on the misguided notion that they are a burden for society. This does happen according to a survey of euthanasia cases carried out in Oregon of the United States. 59% of the euthanasia cases were carried out because the patients felt that they were a burden on family and friends. This is something that politicians must be aware of, and it needs to be avoided. I think, and another reason why the bill should be shelved. I think it may also diminish the inclusion of people with disabilities in society by failing to promote essential services and independent living by virtue of euthanasia being presented as a viable option in legislation. And finally, it may also lead to unfair and or discriminatory distribution of medical resources.
Okay. So you feel that as well as sort of a practical issue, it would have a cultural effect on.
Yeah, I do feel that it would have a cultural effect because I think as a society we have a risk of focusing less on independent living and support for people with disabilities to live independently than there would be if the bill had not been passed. So I think passing the bill would undermine those efforts to promote independent living.
Conor, Lynott, thank you so much for sharing with us this morning.
Thank you
really
so much
appreciate
for
it.
having me.
Thank you.